Have you ever wondered how much of what you see is really true? Or if we're just accepting a comfortable version of reality? At times it feels like there's a hidden cost to believing what we see. But are we, in some way, paying a price, be it emotional, mental, or even social, to maintain a worldview that makes sense to us? Today we'll dive deep into these questions, challenging what we think we know about the very nature of reality. In this video, we'll question the foundations of our perception. Is what we call reality truly solid? Or does our mind only show us what we need to see to survive and find purpose? Science, philosophy, and existential reflections all weave together in this exploration, leading us to deconstruct and analyze the layers of our understanding. Prepare for a journey that might make you question the very act of believing in what you see. So stay with us until the end. We'll begin with a provocative question and seek answers, or at the very least, new ways of understanding the questions that haunt us. After all, how much can we really trust our perception? It's time to uncover the invisible cost of believing in reality. To understand the cost of believing what we see, we first need to explore what this reality truly is. Modern physics reveals that reality, at the quantum level, is neither stable nor predictable. Subatomic particles, the fundamental building blocks of everything, don't have a defined position until observed. This means that the very nature of things changes based on who or what is observing them. This behavior raises an intriguing question. Does reality only exist when someone observes it? Theories like quantum mechanics suggest that our perception acts as a filter, a way to organize something that might otherwise be chaotic and undefined. When we look at the world, our brain isn't just receiving information passively. It's actively interpreting and creating a reality that makes sense to us. Philosophically, this leads us to the concept of idealism, which suggests that the reality we experience depends on the mind. Realism, on the other hand, argues for an objective world that exists independently of the observer. These two views clash, and no scientific experiment has yet definitively proven either one correct. The question remains, does our mind shape the world, or does the world shape our mind? Perhaps what we see is just a simplified, convenient version of reality, something our brain needs to accept to function daily. In other words, our perception might be shielding us from a more complex, potentially unsettling truth. This leads us to wonder, are we truly seeing the world as it is? Or only what we need to see to survive and make sense of life? This idea opens space for reflection on what we call real. If our perception is merely an interpretation, are we paying a price to maintain this comfortable version of reality? In the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into the relationship between our consciousness and the construction of this reality that we accept as true. Our perception of the world inevitably passes through the filter of consciousness, acting as a bridge between what exists and what we experience. The brain interprets external stimuli and creates a reality that feels solid to us. But is this construction genuine? Many scientists and philosophers suggest that consciousness doesn't merely register the world, it transforms it. In other words, by observing, we are also creating a version of what we call reality. This brings us to one of the greatest mysteries in science and philosophy, the hard problem of consciousness. We know the brain processes information and responds to stimuli, yet the origin of the conscious self that feels, perceives, and reflects remains elusive. Some argue that consciousness is simply a byproduct of the brain, while others believe it's a fundamental aspect of the universe. But if our consciousness creates its own reality, what does that imply about truth? Our brain acts like an artist, painting the world with the colors of our experiences, memories, and beliefs. Two people can see the same object, but perceive it entirely differently based on their personal histories. This leads us to question whether reality is unique for everyone, or if each of us lives within a customized version, a subjective reality that exists solely within our minds. In psychology, this process is known as the construction of reality. The mind organizes the chaos of external stimuli and creates patterns that help us make sense of the world, but it also limits what we can perceive. Throughout life, we learn to ignore certain details and focus on others, building a practical, though incomplete, worldview. Could it be that our view of reality is simply a simplified version, adapted for our survival? This mental construction both protects us and confines us. We live within a bubble of perceptions and beliefs that shape our experience and restrict our ability to see beyond. Realizing that consciousness doesn't show us the real world, but rather an interpretation, we are led to question whether there's something more behind this illusion. Is it more important to seek truth, or to believe in the comforting version we choose? Reflecting on this idea, we might come to see that perhaps the search for truth is itself an illusion created by our consciousness. If our reality is a construction, then the cost of believing what we see might be living within a version of the world that is, in fact, an illusion. In the next chapter, we'll explore the necessity of belief. Do we need this illusion to find purpose and meaning? As we reflect on our perception, a question arises. Why do we believe in our version of reality, even if it's a mental construct? For many scientists, the answer lies in evolution. The human mind wasn't designed to see the world with accuracy, but rather to interpret what enhances our survival. This ability to edit reality helps us make quick decisions and face challenges, even if it means accepting a simplified version of the truth. Nietzsche, one of the most influential philosophers, argued that creating meaning is a human necessity. We need to believe in something to avoid being overwhelmed by chaos. For him, even the concept of truth is a construct that we use to bring stability to a reality that would otherwise be disorienting. This idea raises an important question. Is our reality illusion, in fact, a mechanism of emotional and psychological protection? Throughout life, we strive to find stability and security. This search shapes a reality in which our beliefs help us cope with daily life. Faith, whether in spiritual, social, or scientific concepts, is a way to fill the void left by the unknown. Deep down, we believe not just out of a desire to understand, but out of a need to have a foothold in a universe that many find overwhelmingly vast and indifferent. If our view of reality is shaped to give life meaning, then, in a sense, we need this illusion to survive. Believing in what we see gives us a sense of control, a feeling that we can understand and interact with the world. But this raises a troubling question. What would happen if this structure of beliefs were dismantled? The search for truth can sometimes be as unsettling as the unknown itself. This reflection leads us to explore morality and the choices we make within our subjective reality. If everything we believe is a construct, how do we define right and wrong? In the next chapter, we'll see how our perception shapes our morality and to what extent it's truly grounded in the reality we create for ourselves. If our perception is a construct, what does this mean for morality and for what we consider right and wrong? Science suggests that morality might be an evolutionary adaptation. Evolutionary psychologists believe we developed notions of justice and cooperation to live in groups. These social codes protected us, bonded us, and improved our chances of survival. But are the right and wrong we perceive universal? Or are they simply products of our viewpoint? Philosophy offers different answers to this question. Kant, for example, argued for universal morality based on reason. He believed that certain principles are valid, regardless of personal or cultural beliefs. In contrast, Hume suggested that morality is a matter of feelings and perceptions rather than logic. For him, our sense of good and bad doesn't stem from absolute truth, but from our emotional interpretation of reality. This leads to an intriguing dilemma. If morality is constructed, then it depends on what we believe to be reality. In society, we see rules and norms as fundamental truths, but they can vary dramatically from culture to culture. History is full of examples of practices once acceptable but now considered abhorrent. This suggests that what's moral can shift with perception and the social needs of each era. Our view of right and wrong, then, is filtered by our context, experiences, and culture. What is ethical to some may be incomprehensible to others, reinforcing the idea that reality is subjective even in moral judgments. Each of us sees the world through a specific lens, and this lens shapes what we consider just, moral, or immoral. Realizing that even morality may be a construct brings a new question. How can we trust our judgments? Are we making decisions based on a distorted version of reality? If our notions of good and evil are constructed, then what is truly real? In the next chapter, we'll explore the emotional and psychological price of sustaining our beliefs, questioning what happens when our version of truth clashes with reality. Over time, many of us develop a resistance to questioning the reality we see. But what is the cost of accepting the world as it appears to us? Psychologically, this translates to a kind of comfort, a mental relief known as the confirmation bias. This phenomenon drives us to seek out information that supports our beliefs, while ignoring or dismissing anything that threatens our worldview. This tendency isn't accidental. The brain is wired to maintain coherence and avoid internal conflict. When we encounter something that challenges our beliefs, we experience a discomfort called cognitive dissonance. This feeling can be so unsettling that we often cling to what we already know, even if it limits our ability to see a broader, more objective reality. In essence, we believe what makes us feel safe. In Eastern philosophy, this phenomenon of clinging to comfort is compared to the veil of Maya. The Hindu concept suggests that perceived reality is an illusion that keeps us from seeing the true nature of things. Our view of the world is limited, and what we call reality is just a superficial layer. This idea is echoed by Western thinkers like Albert Camus, who question the meaning and truth of existence. So, the emotional cost of maintaining our version of reality can be significant. By holding on to what we already know, we may be ignoring larger, more meaningful possibilities. However, challenging this worldview can be even more unsettling, as it requires us to confront our identity and values. This process is mentally demanding and can lead to existential crises that shake our sense of purpose. At this point, we begin to see that the reality we believe in may be a reflection of our emotional needs, rather than an objective view of what exists. We protect ourselves with a limited but comforting perspective, avoiding the pain of facing the unknown. Questioning our beliefs is an act of courage that not everyone is willing to undertake, as it forces us to abandon the familiar and face the abyss of uncertainty. Understanding the price of belief brings us to a deep reflection. Is it worth holding on to our perceptions if they limit our ability to see the truth? In the next chapter, we'll conclude our journey by exploring what we gain from recognizing the illusory nature of our beliefs and the challenge of living without absolute certainties, but with a renewed perspective. Throughout this video, we've explored the hidden cost of believing in our perception of reality. From science and philosophy to deep existential questions, we've seen that reality is a complex construction shaped by our beliefs, culture, and emotions. This cost is greater than we might imagine. By accepting the world as it appears, we sacrifice the chance to see other possibilities and broaden our understanding. This realization leads us to an essential reflection. Perhaps the true meaning of life isn't found in searching for an absolute truth, but in accepting that our perceptions are largely illusory. Instead of avoiding uncertainty, we can embrace the unknown as an opportunity for growth. Recognizing that our worldview is limited can free us to explore new ideas and accept that definitive answers might never come. And that's okay. This journey teaches us that the pursuit of truth can be more valuable than truth itself. Curiosity and questioning are the driving forces that push us to evolve. So, perhaps the cost of reality is actually a doorway to understanding our own humanity. After all, if reality is a construction, it's up to us to decide how to shape it. With courage and awareness, knowing the world we see is, in part, a choice. Now, the question is yours. What price are you willing to pay to believe in what you see? Share your reflections in the comments and tell us about your experience. In the end, understanding that we don't have all the answers might just be the key to a more authentic and fulfilling life. Thank you for joining us on this journey of questioning.